Okay, so hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am going to switch it up a little bit and give my commentary on what I think about Adele. I know I'm a little late, but what the heck. I felt that it was important that I said what I thought. You know what I mean? Everybody giving their little 2 cents. At the end of the day, it's all just opinions. But I said, why not put my opinion out there? Alright, so I'm gonna switch it up a little bit and share my commentary on Adele wearing a tank top, not a tank top but a bikini top in a print that is the Jamaican flag, coupled with that she is rocking Bantu knot that is unique to the motherland, Africa. And of course, by now you know, since I'm pretty late on this, that there's some controversy surrounding her attire. First of all, Adele, you look good, you look great, she looks happy. Once you're healthy and happy, that's all right with me. Now, what's the controversy? The controversy is whether her wearing the bikini top in the Jamaican flag print and her rocking Bantu knot is deemed cultural appropriation. First of all, I'm just going to share my personal opinion on the matter. At the end of the day, these are all just opinions. That's that. What I think about Adele wearing what she was wearing, I'm totally fine with it. As a Jamaican, I also don't speak for other Jamaicans. If there are people who aren't fine with it for whatever reason, then I can understand that. I'm very big on agreeing to disagree. I think that we can coexist as the human race, even though we share opposing point of views. So I don't think there was anything wrong with what she was wearing. As a former employee at a hotel, I'm used to see tourists rocking Jamaican colors, they're rocking Rasta colors. I personally own a tam. As a matter of fact, let me show you. So this is the tam that I've owned for years and I love it. My friends, my close friends and family will tell you I wear this all the time. Mainly because I really love nude, and there's just something about the Rasta colors. It could just be psychological for me, but you know, Rastafarianism to me is associated with peace and love and good vibes, good energy, and there's just something about the colors. I think it's even mind-blowing that I'm talking about this time being Jamaican and being a part of the Jamaican culture and being accused of cultural appropriation. I've never been accused of it, but I'm saying that it is possible that some people would view it that way. Do you know what I mean? Alright, so what is cultural appropriation? Alright, so according to Wikipedia, cultural appropriation, at times also phrased cultural misappropriation, is the adoption of an element or elements of one culture or identity by members of another culture or identity. This can be controversial when members of a dominant culture appropriate from disadvantaged minority cultures. For example, you guys might remember some time ago when a particular celebrity was rocking a traditionally black hairstyle, and I think they redefined it, they called it something else, and that would be a prime example of cultural appropriation. Also, it was only a couple of years ago that I learned that rock and roll descended from Black American culture, you know, the blues and all that. However, to me, growing up, when you hear rock and roll, you probably think Elvis Presley. And so with that example, you see the possibility of black culture, or more specifically Black American culture, potentially being erased and someone of a different race or ethnic group becomes the face of that culture. And so black people, or by extension Black Americans, become very protective of their culture, and rightfully so. Now with Adele, so like I've expressed, I don't see an issue with what she was wearing. She wore her Bantu knots. In Jamaica, Bantu knot is something that you wear from you're a child, because it's one, a protective style, and it's a style that your mother might put in your hair when your hair is just washed and she wants it to dry. And then if you have school the next day, I remember loving to pull my hair out and it would just curl up and you could catch it up in one, or however you want to style it, and that hairstyle would last for the week. So that's my experience with Bantu knots. tourism is one of our biggest industries. So we're used to seeing people from all walks of life come to the country, and they get adorned in our colors. Sometimes you even see Caucasian people or people of another race sporting dreadlocks, right? And that is just a big testament of the impact reggae and Jamaican culture has had on the world. To this day, when I went to Italy and Spain last year December, I was hearing dancehall and reggae music everywhere I went. I didn't even get the opportunity to feel homesick because my culture is represented so much, and foreigners embrace it so much. And because the Jamaican motto, which I think is more of an aspiration than actual reality, out of many one people, Jamaica is a combination of many ethnic groups that have made a lot of contributions to the culture collectively, whether food or jewelry. And so I say that to say, when it comes to outsiders embracing the Jamaican culture, we're very open to it. The question here with Adele is whether it's cultural appropriation or appreciation. The reason why I say it's her not appropriating it is she's not wearing it and calling it something else. So, you know, if she did her hair in Bantu knots and then she started saying, oh yes, this is a hairstyle that came from, say, randomly Thailand, and it's called, let's just say for argument's sake, the dumpling, then that would be her not acknowledging the origin of this hairstyle and redefining it and putting a new face to this hairstyle. Now, the reason why I felt I needed to do a video on this is not necessarily because Adele wore the hairstyle, the Bantu knots, or she, you know, her bikini top. That's beside the point. However, the Adele controversy really highlighted to me even more. I always read how other black people across the world view black Americans, and growing up I would sometimes hear disparaging things about black Americans, and I saw some comments on Twitter that moved me to further empathize with black Americans. Now, even though I don't see an issue with what Adele's wearing, I've seen comments mainly so far from black Americans saying that it's cultural appropriation, etc., etc. And my husband and I was discussing this topic, and he was actually of the opinion that black Americans aren't the gatekeepers, and for some reason I got defensive that I felt the need to start defending them. I'm going to share a few comments that I've seen across social media that isn't necessarily about Adele, but more so how people feel about black Americans. And when I say people, I'm speaking of people from the Caribbean or across Africa. So one of the first comments that I saw, someone said, "Dear black Americans, y'all are not the spokesmen for the black race ethnically. Adele outfit and hairstyle is none of your business. Pay attention to the shit y'all got going on in the US. Hashtag Adele." And man, I'm telling you that when I read this, I was just heartbroken, because why do we feel the need to speak to black Americans in this manner as if they are other? We are here and they are there. Mind you, we have completely different cultures, or let me not even say completely, there are a lot of similarities in our culture, because at the end of the day, we are descended from the same place, Africa. And I'm not even going to go into the history necessarily of slavery and how we're all connected. But why do we feel the need to talk down to black Americans as if we're somewhat better than them because we've learned how to embrace others sharing in our culture? What I was sharing with my husband also is that black Americans are still fighting for basic human rights to this day, and they've been so impactful to the point where Black Lives Matter has spanned across the whole world. Them protesting has given so many people voices. Black people in other countries who were suffering persecution and unfair treatment and brutality from law enforcement that weren't necessarily as loud, or perhaps didn't have as much confidence to protest as loudly, and yet we're still so disrespectful towards them. When this person said, pay attention to the shit y'all got going on in the US, that really hurt my feelings, even as a Jamaican. And this person is Jamaican. Mind you, I'm very sensitive, you know. However, dear Jamaicans, if it's not for Black Americans and them protesting and their civil rights movement and everything that they have fought for, a lot of your uncle, your cousin, your mother, your sister, your brother, your granny would not have had the opportunity to go to America, make a living, and send money back home to help you or aid in your quality of life. Now, someone else on Twitter went ahead and said, anyone who has ever been to Carnival will know that this is how nearly every woman there dresses. Carnival is about celebrating a culture. This pick of Adele is nothing more than that. Stop trying to cancel everyone when all they're doing is cultural appreciation, not appropriation. And I just want to add that in Black Americans' defense, they are currently still fighting for their right to be seen and their right to be treated as human beings. Us in the Caribbean, even though we share a similar history and traumatic background, we don't necessarily deal with the same issues that they're dealing with to this day. Like I've said before, many, if not all, of the African countries have Black leaders and a Black government. Yes, each country still have their issues, but we have to remember that in America, Black people are a minority and the majority is still the white race. So I can see why they feel the need to constantly defend and to stand up for other Black people that they see might be suffering injustice in the world. In this particular case, was it necessary? Black Americans are still fighting for their lives, literally, to this day. And what is unfortunate is that, and I say it's unfortunate because yes, they do feel like the gatekeepers perhaps for Black culture and protecting, creating this force field around Black culture because they're so used to others taking and taking and taking and never giving them the credit. They have a particularly unique history with Jim Crow. I'm not going to go too much in depth because there's not much that I know about Black American history. However, because of that unique history, they've had to form and develop a culture of their own. Yes, they've drawn from the culture of their ancestors, but they've still had to mold and shape something that is their own, and we can see how impactful that is today. Black American culture is very trendy, and even the rest of the world is still taking from their culture. For example, their lingos like yes and period, you know what I mean? Like, I know so many people of different races and ethnicities that are using these slangs and profiting off hip-hop. However, at the end of the day, we still fix our mouths to disrespect them and say, oh, you don't have a culture and you should mind your business and all the shit that is going on in America. And I think that is exactly the reason why they are overly sensitive and very protective of what is theirs. Jamaicans don't have the burden of constantly trying to protect and defend what is ours. Yes, if push comes to shove and needs be, where we see somebody might be taking advantage of one of our genres of music, I'm sure you can think of a few artists out there who profit off of Jamaican music genres such as dancehall and reggae, and they don't necessarily give back at the same level. And so when it comes to us and we feel like somebody is taking advantage of or mocking our culture, then we'll speak out. In this case, I personally don't think that Adele was mocking our culture. I think she was celebrating, and that is completely fine. If she wants to wear the hair, she'll wear the hair. She is not trying to make it her own. Also, another reason why we're very sensitive about our hair, and yes, still Black Americans, because they're still facing these issues, is that Black people were not allowed to express themselves, to express their beliefs, their culture from slavery days and colonization. It was very tactical to control people by stripping them of their identity, prohibiting them from practicing their culture and expressing their idea of self. And one of those ways was to prevent us from wearing our hair in our natural state. And so you see today the effects of assimilation, women having or feeling required to wear their hair processed or to put in extensions. But that's where it's stemming from. You literally could not get jobs or could go further or advance yourself, because yes, it's a white dominated society and they did not want to see your expression of your blackness for whatever reason. And yes, that is racism. When it comes to white women wearing traditionally black hairstyles, I understand the sensitivity, because these women are able to wear and express themselves in our hair effortlessly without any backlash and sport it as fashion, when we have to hide our natural hair, the way it grows out of our head, to simply get a job. Like, that's messed up. And of course, like you've seen in recent headlines, there's a particular primary school in Jamaica that is prohibiting a child from sporting dreadlocks, and they've been regurgitating some very discriminatory stereotypes to say that the locks have lice and it's unclean, etc. So you still see the effects of an internalized self-hatred and us refusing to freely express ourselves and to express a culture that is unique to us. I'm gonna read another comment on Twitter for you. So someone said, these ignorant gatekeepers of black culture do not talk about how they wear wigs made from hair of white women. Just want to correct, I don't wear weaves or wigs. However, what women today are wearing are not white women here, okay? So just to correct you on that. They don't get dragged by whites for that, but they be dragging Adele for repping Jamaican culture. Effing hypocrites. Now, if it were that black women were wearing white women's hair, even though it's not, they couldn't necessarily drag them for it, because it's not as if they are being prevented from sporting their own hair. It's not as if they're being held back from upward mobility in society simply because of the hair on their head that grows so naturally and so beautifully. It's not as if black women are taking their hairstyles and calling it something else. It's not as if black women are taking their hairstyles and are able to move further in life because their hair is so trendy and so fashionable when they have to wear something else on their head. So no, white women could not drag black women for wearing weaves. Indian women cannot drag black women for wearing weaves. Who else? Ufa ear them wear. I don't know, but you get my point. And permission to be frank, whenever I read comments like these, honestly, I get pick-me vibe. I really get pick-me vibe, and this is probably going to offend Jamaicans or other people from the Caribbean, people from the continent of Africa. However, the tone of these tweets and statements suggests that we are cool, we are the cool blacks, we're okay, we welcome you, we want you over here, you being other races. Those black Americans, they're just bitter, they're just angry, their anger is misplaced. They don't have any understanding of when someone is appreciating your culture. Look at us, love us, look how we appreciate and adore you.
Those are the bad Negroes, we're the good Negroes.
And if you disagree with me, then I understand. Again, we can agree to disagree and be civil about it. So just to wrap up my rambling, I honestly think that black Americans should focus on really doing them. I think Black Americans, because they're constantly having to defend themselves and fight for their lives, have assumed the role of protector for Black people and Black image, and making sure that colonizers don't come and take from and use it for profit like they've done in the past. And I think that's what we're seeing here. A lot of Black people in the world are not seeing it the same way. They don't see you as one of them. We don't see you. Mind you, yes, I consider myself an exception, but I still have to say we don't see you as one of us. Yes, we might have the same skin tone, and another Black American saying that I've learned is all skin folk ain't kinfolk. We share the same pigment or similar pigment, but we don't have a similar mindset. And as soon as someone from a different race decides to share in the culture, if any Black person have an opposing view or any opposing statement towards that person of a different race, then you see how we become nasty to each other. And usually Black Americans are on the other end of the stick. Oh, we are not offended, so why are you offended? That's why you guys are getting mistreated. So I repeat from the bottom of my heart, dear Black Americans, it's really time to look out for you and to look out for your specific group, because when push comes to shove, everybody is looking out for their own, unfortunately. And it pains me to say this, because I also think that Black people in America are so welcoming, and it's because they've been so welcoming of other people. For example, every time you see somebody from a different race or culture doing something Black, they're like, oh, you're invited to the cookout, and that is because of their naturally forgiving and welcoming nature. However, it is because of how they've been so welcoming and forgiving why others have used that for weakness and have taken advantage of them and everything that they bring to the table, and they've been able to advance with it, and Black Americans are still left in the dust. You know what I mean? And so as a result of that experience, something that you're still experiencing to this day, they have basically gotten defensive. I'll give you an analogy. Several men have probably done you dirty if you're a woman in the past, or several women, and you might have come across a good man or a good woman who treats you well. However, because of your past trauma and experiences, you're always on edge, and every little thing that this person does, you start to think that they mean you harm. I remember growing up and I would hear that Black Americans are lazy, they're aggressive, you know, they're thugs, and you know what I mean? A lot of negative things that has been perpetuated through mainstream media. And so it shows, because of this whole Adele thing, the underlying issue that I find is that we still think that there's us and then there is them. And I just want to say that if you're from the Caribbean, we have to do better. If you're from the continent of Africa or wherever you are as a Black person, I think you need to check your sentiments on Black Americans. Like I said previously, they have been paving the way for so many Black people across the world. So much so that even today when they're protesting, you'll hear in their speeches, oh, for Black and brown people, for Black and brown, for Black and brown. They're always including other people because they see you, and they're hoping that because we have the same skin color, then we should be on one accord and have the same goal. It's been proven that that's not the case, right? However, they're always Black and brown, Black and brown. But even the brown people, the Hispanics, a lot of them do not like Black people. They don't even, how should I put it? A lot of them look down on Black people. A lot of people from the Middle East look down on Black people. Even in America, they look down on Black Americans. It's this constant aspiration and trying to get closer to whiteness. Maybe if I look down on them and separate myself from them, then white people would like me more. And that's the colonized mindset that Bob Marley talks about, emancipating yourself from mental slavery. We need to check that and check why it is that as soon as a white person is involved, we just go at each other and we tear each other apart. Like, American culture has such a great impact that even when somebody say, oh, black, or you know, black people, I think for most people your mind automatically goes to Black Americans because of the impact their culture and their spirit has had on the world. Just one last comment where someone said, a word to Black Twitter. I'm guessing Black Americans, Black Twitter. All of you don't get a say in whether we Jamaicans cancel or adopt Adele. She's wearing our flag, not yours. Plus she sings a ton of ballads, aka souls, and Jamaicans love that shit. Stand down and go watch the VMAs. In closing, dear Black Americans, I see the good that you're trying to do in this world by feeling the need to defend blackness and black culture. It doesn't matter whether it's your culture, but once it's black, and to defend it against people who are trying to take and profit and capitalize off it. I understand the sentiment. I think it's very noble. However, they don't see it that way. I think you're going to have to take the approach of a parent who is constantly talking to their child to say, don't do this, be on the lookout for this, be on the lookout for that, and the child doesn't want to listen because you're old and you just don't understand, you've never been young before. You're gonna have to take the approach of let them watch and see. I don't necessarily think this is a watch and see case, because I don't think Adele was culturally appropriating Bantu knots. However, there are many other cases where I see you felt the need to defend blacks across the diaspora, and what I want to say is it's time to focus on you guys and leave the rest of us to fight or fight. Unfortunately, we're not receiving it with love, and it's probably gonna take us going through something devastating when it comes to cultural appropriation for us to get it. And then that's when we're probably gonna need you guys' very loud voice and very impactful voice, because let's not kid ourselves, you guys are impactful. There's some final words. Unfortunately, we don't love you the way you love us, and so I encourage you to remain positive and to keep your fighting spirit and focus on you guys, because as we have shown you, we'll fight our own battles. I don't know why we can't fight them together. I just felt the need to let you guys know that you are appreciated. I am certain I am not the only Jamaican that feels this way, but your fighting spirit is most definitely an inspiration, and I love to see the way you have ignited the fire in so many black people across the world, and that is to not go unrecognized. Okay, so big up on yourself. Take care.